anyone who doesn't know, welcome to From Villainess to Heroine. We're Psych and So Cosplay, and we're barely awake. Woo!
Thank you all for coming out on this Sunday morning. So, the panel we'll be discussing this morning will be focusing a lot of shows that have been, or manga, webtoons that have been getting adapted into anime recently, have included a changing, a shift in tropes where we're seeing these female leads, instead of being someone that is merely an accessory to a hero or a means to an end for someone else's journey, they are taking themselves from their expected situations where, oh, you're reborn as a princess, oh, you should be doing this. And they completely try to disregard that and set their own path as they go forward.
So we're going to unfortunately have to start off just so that you know that this is different with the two different heroes' journeys. So bear with us, we'll get through these two slides quickly so we can move on to the better stuff.
So, before we get to the heroine's journey, there is the concept of the hero's journey, was proposed by Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was a researcher who majored in biology, and then transferred to Columbia University where he specialized in medieval literature. He also continued his studies going to universities in Paris and Munich. While in Europe, he was influenced by the art of Pablo Picasso and Henry Matisse, novels by James Joyce and Thomas Mann, and psychological studies of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. These encounters led Campbell's theory that all myths and epics are links in the human psyche, and that they are cultural manifestations of the need to explain social, cosmological, and spiritual realities. So there was a lot of common themes that were observed of how these main characters, how their journeys progress from characters that went through these steps where there's a call to action and they need to overcome their own shortcomings in order to grow and become an actualized person within their own story. Modern scholars have used the archetype to describe heroic journeys across multiple genders. So initially this model is attempted to be applied to any character in literature, but Campbell viewed it as only pertaining to males, where the female counterparts were included as a goal for the hero's journey.
And the main point is this is all about quests for external objectives. Now look at the steps.
The hero's journey, as described by Joseph Campbell, included the call to adventure, where a hero is living within their ordinary world, but receives some sort of calling to change their life and enter the unknown. Refusal to call, the hero turns away from their calling because they feel some sort of obligation to stay where they are, or fear of not being brave, smart, strong, or whatever enough to begin their journey. Receive supernatural aid, not necessarily spiritual or ghostly, but some other force acts as a guide or mentor that appears and becomes known to them to help them start their journey. They'll cross the first threshold, they leave their ordinary known world, and start entering the unknown world where their journey takes place. They enter the belly of the whale. This implies that the hero is completely severed from their connection to the safe world, where now they're fully committed to their journey and have to fully engage with their transformation itself. Derivative trials. The hero goes through a series of struggles, trials that test the hero's characteristic and ability. Meeting the goddess, the hero encounters some sort of powerful love or embodiment of good, and the hero must work to earn the connection with the goddess, whether it be like literal goddess or just someone in their lives that they meet. Woman as a temptress, the hero is tempted away from their journey and their ultimate reward. Atonement with the father, not biological father at all times, but they come to terms with the realization that their parental/mentor figure is mortal and flawed themselves, and that even despite their flaws, they may have to continue to rely on this imperfect being for help. Apotheosis, hero reaches some sort of higher understanding that equips them for the final, most difficult stages of their journey / transformation. The ultimate boon. Boon is they achieve what they set out to. So they acquire some type of item or title or complete some great task. And then there's the refusal of return. Hero, after going through this journey, is reluctant to leave this new world and return to their ordinary world. Module flight, the hero then realizes that they must return to their community and bring their enlightenment or boon, whatever that they gained, back to the community, and they may have to work to escape whichever new world that they set out to do. Rescue from without. Hero may be too weakened physically or mentally to return with the boon, and must be retrieved by someone from their ordinary world. Someone, either an old mentor or whatever, may need to help hold it back. Crossing of the return threshold. Hero reconnects with the ordinary world and must discern some way to keep their boon and integrate their new knowledge into the way that the old world functions. And then, after they reconcile with this, they become master of two worlds. The hero then understands and is able to balance the separation between the two worlds, often in some material or spiritual sense, and they bridge a gap that seems to exist between how they began, how they were, and how they return, what they become. And by mastering these two worlds, they gain the freedom to live, where they no longer fear death or the consequences of the unknown, and allow them to live without fear of their past or the future ahead of them.
The good news is, everybody after Campbell didn't do 17 steps. So, you guys have heard of Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey book, right? Well, this is Christopher Vogler's Hero's Journey, which is the one that most people think of as Campbell's Hero's Journey. So poor Christopher Vogler goes and readapts his Hero's Journey, but then he doesn't even get his name attached to it.
Christopher Vogler worked for Disney and created various writer-friendly heroic narratives based on Campbell's work. So this new rework of the Hero's Journey came about in 1992 in the writer's journey, mythic structure for storytellers and screenwriters. And then there was another more well-known version that was released in 1998. The book stems from a 7-page studio memo, Practical Guide to Hero with 1,000 Faces. It was published in 1992, second release in 98. There's also a third edition that was published in 2007, which included new introduction, new artwork, and analysis of recent popular motion pictures.
And then the important thing to look at is Christopher Vogler saw Campbell's Hero's Journey, which was based on this psychological work, and was like, that's not very practical for writing. In fact, it's not great for writing. Let me rework it.
Christopher Vogler's Hero's Journey is outlined starting with the ordinary world. Similar thing, readers are introduced to a new character, the world that they currently live in, and introduced that something in the hero's life makes them feel they're being pulled in different directions and cause stress. Either the life that is set ahead of them is not what they feel like they should be doing, or there's some kind of pull where they don't want to leave their ordinary life, but fate has something else in store for them. Call to adventure, something shakes up the situation. The hero feels called to make a change, which usually involves leaving their home. This also includes a refusal of the call, fear the unknown, and considers turning away from their adventure. Next, the hero finds a mentor. There's often some kind of stranger, an elder, or perhaps something supernatural that gives them training, equipment, or advice that will help along the journey. Think Hercules, or whatever, when he meets Phil. Now he has the training to become an actualized demigod. Approaching the threshold, They commit to leaving the world where they started and enter a new region or condition with unfamiliar goals or values. Test allies. Enemies, the hero is tested and sorts out allegiances in the unfamiliar or the world. Approach, the hero may make allies, prepare for the major challenge in the special world. Ordeal, the hero arrives into center space in the unfamiliar world and faces death or their greatest fear. The hero emerges from this moment of reckoning and change in some way. Reward, the hero takes possession of treasure that they won in their ordeal. There may be celebration, but there's also danger of losing their treasure that they gained. Road back, the hero must complete the adventure and leave this new world and bring their treasure back home. There may be a chasing or something that signals urgency in the danger of the mission and their need to return. Resurrection, the hero is severely tested once more as they near home and climax. Hero is changed by a last sacrifice, another moment of death and rebirth, often psychological, not literal, which prepares them to be a leader upon their return. And then they return with the elixir or whichever new ideas or concepts which have transformed them and attempt to bring that into their original world.
So then we have the creation of a new journey. So the heroine's journey was created in response to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It was written in 1990 by Maureen Murdoch, and then it was developed during therapy sessions with women. One of the quotes from Campbell is, "Women don't need to make the journey. In the whole mythological tradition, the woman is there. All she has to do is realize that she's the place that people are trying to get to." And Maureen Murdoch was like, so that's not what I'm getting in my therapy sessions with these women. I think you're wrong, and I'm going to fix that. So she was a Jungian-oriented psychotherapist. So Jungian therapy is a talk therapy that includes exploring unpleasant parts of your mind or painful previous experiences to fully understand what your true problems are and how to resolve them to the greatest extent possible. So after she worked with women in her therapy, she felt that the hero's journey, even if it was being used to apply to women, which Campbell didn't support, but people later did, it still was not representing the psycho-spiritual journey of contemporary women at the time. So at its core, the heroine's journey is about internal self-worth and discovery, and it's not about finding an external objective. It's not meant to be exclusively about women, and Maureen even stated that it applies to anyone that is struggling to accept the polarized parts of their being. So we start with the heroine separates from the feminine. The feminine is often a mother mentor figure or a societally prescribed feminine marginalized or outsider role. So it's a role that people are stuck in, have to follow, and don't feel like they can escape because of societal pressures. Then we have the identification with the masculine and gathering of allies. So then the heroine embraces a new way of life. They're going to choose a path that's the complete opposite of what their subscribed goal is at the time. Keep in mind, because of the time period when this was being created, which was in the 80s, the main reason why we have from the feminine to masculine ideal in this is because everything about going out, doing something different was still subscribed to a masculine role, and it's not necessarily saying that you have to follow those two traits. And then we have roads, trials, and meeting ogres and dragons. So the heroine encounters trials and meets people who try to dissuade the heroine from pursuing their chosen path or who's trying to destroy the heroine. They then experience the boon of success. This is generally where, she overcomes the obstacles in their way, and it's also typically where the hero's journey would have ended. Then number 5 is awakening to feelings of spiritual ardity and death. So basically, her new way of life that she's chosen, it's too limiting, it's not actually working for her, and she's going to encounter problems or a sense of betrayal of self over time. And then we have initiation and descent to the goddess. So the heroine will then face a crisis of sorts where their new way of life is not working. The heroine falls into despair, and all of these different strategies that they've tried to fit their new life around have failed them and don't work anymore. Then the heroine urgently wants to reconnect with the feminine. So basically in this, the heroine wants to, but can't return to how they used to be. So even if they feel like their new way of life is working, they can't go back to their old way of life. And then the heroine heals the wounded masculine within. So now they've made peace with the new way of life and how it applies to them. And then the heroine integrates the masculine and feminine. And so this is basically, in order for them to have this new world and future, they have to understand that the past self that they had isn't necessarily wrong, nor is their new self, and they have to integrate the two and come to accept their new way of life. Now, just like Maureen Murdoch, Joseph Campbell, someone came along and said, hey, that's great, but it doesn't really work for writing. So that's where we get Victoria Lynch Smith's hero's journey. In 2001, she published a new heroine's journey in her book, 45 Master Characters. So it has the heroine's journey in it, but then it also has these 45 character tropes that basically helps writers to create a story around these different archetypes. Unlike Maureen Murdoch's heroine's journey, which was circular, which wasn't circular, hers is circular like the hero's journey, and the stages can be interchanged and repeated. It's a lot more common in today's literature to see Smith's version because it's easier to use when writing. So Lynn starts with the illusion of the perfect world. So you think you have the perfect life, everything's going the way that you want, and then suddenly everything changes. And this is one of the reasons why we're going to see that it works so well with villainous animes, because they have this illusion of the perfect world until the heroine comes along and ruins it, or they reincarnate, or they come to a new world as an Isekai, as the villainess, and their perfect world is just shattered. Then we have betrayal and disillusionment. The heroine's coping strategies fall apart because they are betrayed by someone, because they realize their coping strategy was toxic, ineffective, or they realize that their world is not what they thought. So then we have the awakening and preparing for the journey. So the heroine might become hopeless, but then they do I'm going to do something at my plight. I'm not just going to allow this to keep happening, and I'm going to make changes. Then we have the descent, passing the gates of judgment. So the heroine then experiences fear, abandonment, guilt, or shame. They might not feel like their new identity is working for them, and that they must give up control and all their tools and defenses and weapons. And then we have the Eye of the Storm. So this is the stage which corresponds with Murdoch's boon of success, in which the heroine experiences a small amount of success, and so they then have this false sense of security, thinking that nothing else is going to happen because it's already, like, bad things have occurred, I've accomplished everything, I can move on. So then we have death, all is lost, and in this stage, which corresponds to Murdoch's spiritual and ardity / death stage, they realize their new coping strategies aren't effective, and that maintaining a state of respect requires constant, unsustainable fighting. And as things get worse, the heroine feels there's no hope. Despite their best efforts, they fail and accept defeat. Then you have number 7, the support. The heroine meets someone who may also be a spirit, goddess, or a muse within, who offers support, and the heroine embraces the feminine aspect of support and accepts that they are not completely self-sufficient. Then we have the rebirth and moment of truth. So they find their strength, resolve with the help of other support, and then they awaken and see the world and their role within it differently, and that they need to face their own fear with compassion. And then finally, we have the return to a world seen with new eyes. So now the internal conflict has been resolved, their spiritual conflict has been resolved, and their way of life has been confirmed, and they can go back to where they used to be, but they don't have to accept everything as it is. So when we look at the hero's journey versus the heroine's journey, you can see that there's actually a lot of really similar tropes between the different hero's journey. It's also really interesting to see that the hero's journey and the heroine's journey for originally were both based off of psychological discoveries. And then you have writers who come along and go, okay, I understand your concept, I think it's a great idea, but it doesn't necessarily work as a writing format. And then they'll rework it into these slightly shorter and more cohesive forms.
This makes a lot of sense because in psychological progression, you are trying to help guide someone from the place they're currently at, where their strategies and coping tools are not working, trying to figure out how to overcome those obstacles, where in that case, whatever counselor, whoever would be the mentor that tries to bring the hero or heroine to their new role. So we can compare that to how writers create these situations in these anime that we'll be looking at, and how they come from this, like, into this new world, into this new role, and they're like, I got this. And then everything plays out differently than they expect.
And so to begin it with the most well-known and one of the first new Villainess Isekai animes, I'm going to start with My Next Life as a, there we go. My Next Life as a Villainess, all roots lead. So this is one of the first villainous animes that we see coming out as an isekai. They're actually starting in 2018. There is a vast increase in the number of villainous animes that come about. So this one more follows Maureen Maddox's like heroine's journey format. So Katarina will start out, she remembers her past life and no longer is embracing her societal role as a Duke's daughter. I'm not actually the real Katarina, I'm just my previous life playing as Katarina. So she doesn't identify with this role that she's been assigned, so now she's like, well, I'm gonna go somewhere else because I don't want to get killed. So then she's like, okay, I'm going to avoid my doom flags, and I'm gonna do that with unladylike endeavors such as farming. She becomes best friends with the main male characters and their siblings and betrothed. We will now commence the first meeting to discuss her strategy for avoiding the doom ending. She has this lovely little council inside her head that is all different aspects of herself discussing how are we not gonna die. When she turns 15, it's the start of the Fortune Lover video game, which she remembers. She decides she's going to protect the original heroine from bullying, and she also is dealing with her mother's disapproval of her farming. Her mother's like, you're a Duke's daughter, why are you farming? And she's like, I don't farm, and the bad endings happen. I don't want to die. Everyone
always has a plan to flee the country and start a new life somewhere else, right?
Yeah. So then later on, while she's visiting Maria's farm and further bonding with her friends, Katarina believes she has escaped her lingering doom and lets down her guard. So she's experienced the boon of success, so she's like, everything's cool, I'm great, I didn't do any bullying, I'm a great person. So she's like, how truly splendid that she broke her doom flag without meaning to. Problem is, that's not gonna work, unfortunately. So, you know, she believes everything's all right, and knowing she has the backup with farming, she's completely blindsided when she's accused of bullying and believes her quest has failed. So now she's experiencing feelings of ardity and death because, as she says, I can't believe after everything it's still happening. So she feels betrayed that all her efforts have just gone up in smoke. Katarina then remembers that she's avoided her doom flags because her friends have helped her, but then Maria's been kidnapped, and it's being linked to dark magic. So now, you know, she has to deal with the ardity of death and find her new way of living so that she can once again avoid these doom flags. So then she remembers there's a secret boss in the game, and she tries to remember her past life to save Maria, but is captured instead. So she's trying to remember her past life, combine it with her new life. She's just not able to get to that point yet. She realizes that she's trapped in memories of her past life and is visited by Atsuko, which is her old friend, which allows her to remember the rest of the game, allowing her to wake up and finding Rhea. So this is the meaning of the goddess event. And then she's able to use her newfound memories to help Raphael remember his true self and reject dark magic. I'm here because I want to talk, to listen. I think it's important that we understand each other. So now she's reconciled her old world with her new world. They've come together and she's able to have this success. And now Katarina has now temporarily accepted her role in society and that this is her new reality that she can enjoy with her new friends. So, she's opened up to this new way of life. When I was reincarnated as a Villainess in an Otome game where all routes lead to my doom, I spent my early days complaining about how my life couldn't be any worse, but now I can loudly and proudly say that I, Katarina Claes, have been truly blessed to have met and befriended all these wonderful and amazing people. But this is as far as the game's storylines went. I have no idea what will happen from this point forwards. None of this was part of the game script. A new season is about to begin. So now she's accepted the game has ended, but I'm still continuing to live, and I'm going to move forward with this new path. So you can really see that this Villainesses journey is really identifying with the heroine's journey, because it's not about this external goal, it's about this internal resolve and conflict that needs to be fixed in order for her to move on in her new Isekai life.
There you also see reconciling of the two selves, where she strongly presents a new masculine personality, where I'm going to farm, I'm going to do things, I'm not even following the nobility, I'm trying to develop these skills I need to be self-sufficient in case I need to, flee the country and start a new life. But then she does take on the role where she allows herself to become Katarina Claes and fill that role while still being true to herself from her past life.
So Dr. Elise is actually interesting because within the first 1 or 2 episodes, you've already completed one version of the heroine's journey, and then she'll begin to start a new version of the heroine's journey. So we're gonna get into both of them. So we start off with Elise Florence. She believes she has the perfect life and can win her husband's favors through her child's actions. But this is the illusion of the perfect world. Then, despite being the empress of her kingdom, her husband, the emperor, executes her and her family for having her selfish actions. So then you have the betrayal and disillusionment. She's then reborn as Dr. Kim in our world, vows to reform herself and save a life for every person she has caused to die in her previous life. So now she has this awakening and is preparing for the journey. Then the plane that Dr. Kim is on crashes and she's surrounded by injured people. So you have the descent passing the gates of judgment. In the eye of the storm, she's able to save everyone on board the flight that was injured. And then you have death, all is lost. She expresses remorse for the loss of her family and not being able to save more people in this life as she succumbs to her injuries. And then as she dies, she remembers her family and the love and support they gave her, finally asking for the forgiveness she needs to move on. Then Dr. Kim wakes up in her old life as Elise Florence, determined to prevent the future tragedies that have occurred and her ability to prevent the future, confident in her ability to prevent the future tragedies that have happened. And then she is able to have this new way of life because she's been reunited with her family. She accepts that she was selfish and spoiled, but she now has a second chance as Elise. She embraces her old identity and decides that in this life she will do the good she couldn't do before as a doctor. So this is when the first episode or 2 of the show, and in the manga it's less than the first chapter. And we've already completed this journey. But then we get a more complicated heroine's journey that is currently ongoing in the show. So then she no longer wishes to perform the functions of noble women and wants to end her engagement and become a doctor. So she's separating from that feminine orchestrated role. Then she's able to express her opinions to the emperor on things that are typically thought of as masculine pursuits, and convinces him to allow her to end her engagement if she can prove being a doctor is more beneficial to the country. So now she's identifying with this new masculine role and her gathering of allies around her. So then she goes to work as Rose at Teresa Hospital, but is looked down on by Dr. Graham, and to put to work an award for those of the lower class without the funds for better treatment. So this is her first obstacle she has to overcome. No one believes that she can do anything because she's supposed to be a spoiled noble girl. She then befriends the nurses and Dr. Graham through her art and care of the patients and skilled medical treatment. So she's able to experience her first boon of success. She then, despite the agreement that she has with the king, she's announced as Prince Linden's fiance, which is further standing in the way of her becoming a doctor. So she's like, I thought we had this deal. Why are you announcing that I'm his fiance, even if the king didn't technically announce this is happening? But then the king has a heart attack. Prince Linden is imprisoned, and Elise can no longer think as a doctor, and her past emotions are preventing her from diagnosing the king's illness. So now she's facing a crisis where her new way of life of being a doctor isn't working because she hasn't reconciled her old feelings and is interfering with her diagnosis process. And that is as far as the anime has gone. I was finishing this yesterday because all of these Villainess animes that we're doing that are still ongoing just updated yesterday.
I haven't seen the last episode. Oh no!
Oh no!
I guess,
Spoilers!
I finished the story.
I read the manga, but I didn't think you guys would like it if I did complete spoilers.
I guess, yeah. So these shows we'll be talking about, there may be some spoilers as to how things progress and how they grow. So I'm the only watcher, so...
But the good news is, even if I read the manga, I'm not including it in this because I thought you would all hate me.
今日稼いだってもいいじゃない人目をうがつさが逆境もいつかはいいじゃんいいじゃん糧になんだって君に生きよ命一つ限り一瞬一瞬かけがない乾杯
Another show we looked at, I'm the Villainess, so I'm taming the final boss. In this, the main character, Eileen Lauren Belcher, she, again, it's a similar being reborn from someone who is originally from our world into this new game world. Her story begins with Crown Prince Cedric ending their engagement. And here, for her character, being engaged with Prince Cedric is supposed to be like the good outcome. So now starting this life, and the Crown Prince is accusing her of all kinds of things, and which is to end the engagement and means to embarrass her and throw her name through the mud. During the scene, she realizes that she has been reborn into this game that she knows well, and she uses the tools from her old world. She's like, oh, I know how this goes. And she has the illusion of the perfect world. I'm going to go find this demon lord Claude, and I know that he's going to be the final boss. So I'm going to romance him so that I can avoid my death by taking control of my life and changing script. She has an awakening and preparing for the journey, where she goes to the manor of Lord Claude, much like Lisa Tabes goes to Dracula's castle and essentially forces their way in, and it's like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, you have to deal with it. But even though this starts to progress where she seems like she's starting to win Claude's favor, she does continue to have to deal with Cedric. She finds out from her father that Cedric and Lilia have started to seize any of her business ventures, so she's losing financial capital, and her father's now tasking her with, you need to make up the money somehow, or, and this kind of presents a descent past the gates of judgment, where so there's fear of abandonment and guilt. As things progress, it gets to the pivotal point where in the game, this is kind of the climax where Claude, through extreme stress, transforms into the Demon Lord, and the main character, Lilia, is supposed to use the Holy Sword to slay him. And Eileen, seeing the situation play out, despite like being in the eye of the storm, where she thinks that she has the tools to try to prevent this outcome, she now needs to like figure out a new way to overcome this obstacle, despite everything being lost and all of her efforts being in vain up to this point. And then after that progresses, she uses the power of love and friendship and all that to bring things back to normal. However, she finds out that there's further agents that are acting against her journey, and we see that Claude ends up sacrificing his memories in order to protect her due to Lilia's intervention, and he forgets Eileen's existence completely and initially rejects her much in the same way that he did in their first meeting. So Eileen tries arduously to get him to remember and to kind of, you know, I won him over once, I can do it again. But he in his current state continues to reject her, and she then needs to come to a decision of, do I continue adhering to these old strategies that are now not working, or do I reject it completely and try to become more self-sufficient and be prepared for when, you know, eventually Claude breaks the engagement and now I need to take care of myself. However, things do progress. Claude does still end up choosing her, and even though before he gets his memories back, he starts to accept that she's someone who is significant to him in some way. And she also learned to accept that by regaining her attachment to Claude, that loving him and relying on him isn't a weakness, and that having this ally in her life is someone that can add to her boon, and that is something that she can use as she further progresses her journey. If you watch the show, you also see that she gains a lot of allies through sheer tenacity. There's many people like Isaac and Matt who are willing to do pretty much anything, even underhanded tactics, if it means her desired outcome being what happens. And eventually they go into a final battle against Lady Lilia, who we find out also has memories of a past life, and is now acting as like a kind of a new scriptwriter who's trying to play out the story. So she needs to work together with her allies to rescue Claude and defeat Lilia. So now she accepts her role as the Crown Princess once again, with Claude moving to be the new emperor, and this time she gets to choose that role instead of it being kind of thrust upon her by her father like it had been with Cedric originally.
Please plug your ears when we get to the next slide if you don't want spoilers.
I'm pretty sure this episode just came out yesterday, so we quick added new content after we watched it. So Villainess level 99. Again, we have a character from our world that is reborn into this video game that they're very familiar with. So they're reborn as Uniel Adultness, the daughter of a what do they call him? Regional lord. So someone who has some degree of authority within the empire, but is kind of seen as like a country hick kind of ruler. So instead of accepting her role as Uniela and attempting to get remarried into a more wealthy family to increase her family's standing, she decides to treat it like a game where she's like, oh, I need to be prepared for what's going on. I don't want to be the secret boss and get killed by Alicia at the end of this. So I'm going to train and I'm going to raise my levels as high as I can by going into dungeons every day by myself.
She goes a little too far.
So she's a classic RPG player.
Yeah. She's played one or two games before. So she separates with the concepts of the heroine strange. She separates from the feminine instead of adopting a societal role as the daughter of a lord. She decides she's going to become a level 99 adventurer. Then, when she becomes of age, she starts attending the academy where the events of the main game take place, and immediately has the idea that she wants to live a comfortable life and just avoid death, but she gets kind of ousted when they assess everyone's magical capabilities, and her abilities literally break the machine, and they have to get a new machine that they're like, same level 99, that's not something that has been achieved in our history at all. So she starts to become ostracized by her peers. They start to fear her, question her motives, and there's a quote there, aren't I loath to an extreme degree? Where she even questions, like, this reaction is a little too intense, isn't it? So, this, in the journeys where she meets the Ogres and Dragons, people that are like, no, you're just a villain at this point, like, we don't trust you because of how much power you have, and especially the fact that she utilizes dark magic, which, although people know it's not immediately associated with villains, people still fear it because of its gruesome appearance. However, she does eventually become acknowledged by the king. What does she do? She's like slays a dragon or something. Why is it to give her?
She just does the doom spell, black hole.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, the black hole.
It's not important to the capital.
Yeah. She gets recognized by the king, and here we start to see a boon of success where she starts to be acknowledged for her abilities instead of being like ostracized and villainized for it. And after being recognized, she sees that her classmates are mixed between wanting to trust her, but then we have the Crown Prince Ed and the other members of the main game's party that are still trying to throw her name through the ground, and even go as far as accusing her of being the Demon Lord herself. So, despite all this, she does have people that reach out to her, where she does gain allies with the character Patrick, and there she's a little questioning of it, but she learns to accept their friendship and realizes that there's someone that accepts her for who she's become. In recent episodes, she's accepting what she becomes, but then she reacquaints herself with the feminine, with the kind of role that originally this new world has given her, where she sees not only is she fighting off assassins and by her family, but she sees a young boy in the town that she's exploring that has dark hair that's afraid to initiate conversation and play with other kids due to discrimination within the world against those who have darker hair. And she states that even though she also has hair as dark as the night, that she has earned friends and that people came up to her and opened up to her, and that he shouldn't worry about who he is. He should just be what he wants to be, and people gravitate towards him as long as he's true to himself. After this encounter, she then gains a new like motivational drive, where she confronts her parents about their assassination attempts and coerces her father to yield his title to her, where she now accepts this new role, that she doesn't want people with dark hair to face the same kind of discrimination, and she sees this new role for her in society. So she then meets with the king and will now take her place in society and will use it to eliminate discrimination felt by those with dark hair. And she talks with Patrick about her new goals, where he says that he will do his best to support her and her new goals the best that he can. And she also accepts a role where she will help go with this party of heroes. So there we see her, she tries to separate from Yumiola's role and start a life as what she knows from her old life, but then she integrates this new identity in with her personality. And she realizes she can no longer take everything on her own and has allies that she can rely on in this journey.
So the important thing for her journey was just accepting the fact that, yes, she's level 99, but she can have other people assist her. She just doesn't have to do it on her own. Other people can get strong enough to not be in her way. This is one of those ones where the Isekai reincarnation thing is like finding the fine line, but we really liked it, so we threw it in anyway. So in this, Riche is falsely accused by her fiance of harassment and is cast out of her position as a duke's daughter. So she's like, well, guess this isn't working, I'm gonna move on. So she's like, I'm gonna join a traveling merchant group. And every time she dies at the age of 20, she takes on a new role and thinks that things will get better. And then she becomes a royal knight, and she's like, I'm gonna be able to finally defend myself, prevent my death, everything's gonna be great. And the quote is, I've lived this life to the fullest too, but next time I'll. So like, as she's dying, she's like, this coming life, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna live past the age of 20. But she's once again killed by Prince Arnold at age 20 in this life as well. So then, when Prince Arnold encounters her in this newest life, and is like, be my fiance, she's like, you did kill me, but maybe if I marry you, you won't kill me.
And she also wants to visit his country.
That's true. She's never gotten to visit his country in all the lives that she's lived, even if it's the country that kills her. So she finally has the chance to integrate all of the skills to her previous life that has taught her, and she's coming to accept that in this life, she doesn't have to split from her position as nobility. You know, before she's like, nobility was the shackles that were holding me back, and I'm gonna live all these different things. But in this life, she's like, okay, maybe I can use my position as nobility to change things, improve things, and make things better for myself and everyone else. She then starts to better connect with Prince Arnold, despite her reservations, and she has now chosen that no matter what happens, she's gonna remain with him. So even if he's like, I'm getting rid of you, she's like, I'll just come back as a maid, and if you fire me, I'll just come back as a doctor, like, you're stuck with me now, sorry. That is, however, as far as this anime has gone, but even still, you can see that it's like following this heroine's journey. And sometimes, even if authors don't mean to, there's like this societal and psychological format that like society forces on people, and it'll show through in each one of these writings.
It is interesting that we also got a backstory of the different attempts. So almost like we've seen multiple iterations of her journey and how she attempted to reconcile her past self but then integrate new skills and a new identity to try to, you know, reach the end of her life without perishing. I also like how when she starts over, she's like, wait, I have money. Let me quick run back to my house so that I have resources to start.
手を伸ばして焦がれていた届くはずない光こんな世界でこんな世界で何度も見てた
Some more here. So, the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady. So, this one we have a character that has memories of her past life, who then is trying to reject her role as princess, and then...
That's not who we're focusing on.
I know,
We're focusing on villains.
I know.
Okay.
You get it.
Okay.
But then the character that we focus mostly on is Ophelia. When we first really see her character, she is originally the Crown Prince's fiancée, and when she is rejected, she feels like she loses her purpose. So here we see this sense of loss, and she initially blames herself because I'm insufficient as a future daughter and as a future queen. She's taking on this burden of responsibility. However, Lady Annis, the Crown Princess, takes her in as a research assistant for her magicology studies. So despite the stigma that this carries, Ophelia gains this new identity as a magical researcher. Here we see that she needs to come to terms with her desire to be free and to start this new identity, while also wanting someone to give her a new direction in life. She overcomes her fears and her insecurities of participating in these studies, and also gains new confidence. And when trying to deal with Al and his plot against the throne, we even see her gaining a lot more confidence for the quote saying, Anastasia, can you leave this matter to me? So with this new boon of success and the gathering allies that Annis brings to her, she attempts to use her position as Duke, Magenta's daughter, and now that her reputation has been restored, she makes the offer to do the spiritual awakening to become the next emperor, so that Annis doesn't have to in her place. That idea is rejected by Annis, who tries to take the full burden of becoming the next ruler on her own, so that we see a bit of a eye of the storm kind of thing going on there. Ophelia realizes that she cannot allow Annis to be queen, as she does not want that responsibility to break Annis's character, and instead wishes for peace that they had before. So she realizes that in this current role that she has, she cannot do that, so she needs to take it upon herself to be able to take over and become the queen instead of Annis, and save her from the burden of that. So even though Annis is against it, she enters a spirit contract to become the new crown princess, and seals her resolve and even challenges Annis to a duel to try to force her to accept what she is trying to do for Annis and also for the kingdom itself. After winning the duel, Ophelia does become the queen. However, instead of things falling apart and all becoming lost like Annis was fearing, she does work to overcome any prejudices from the community that she doesn't start of noble birth, but uses her talents and her charisma and personal drive to both become a ruler, but also still someone that can be important to Annis and being herself. she states, "I'll bring an end to the current age of magic and the traditions we've kept for generations. That is my purpose for becoming queen, and I will build an age in which magic is accessible to anyone, not just the nobility with their exclusive privilege."
So now the real question is, why are Otome, Isekai, Villainess animes following the heroine's journey? Well, a lot of them, it's because having memories from past life makes them feel disconnected from their current life. So they're not able to accept the role that they have in life because either there's societal differences, there's the trauma that occurs from, I just died and now I'm in a new body, or even if they didn't die, now they're still in this new role and there's just like that disconnect that they're not able to hold together. Isekais frequently have characters that are unhappy with their new societal standing, and the villainous isekais aren't any different. One of the biggest things is actually just the fact that they're villainous, because a lot of times, these are good people, and now they're being told, hey, you're this evil villainess, and they're like, but that's not me, so I have to change it. And it's really interesting because we see that it's breaking the cycle of female protagonists only being part of the hero's journey. So in a lot of previous animes, even if there is a female main protagonist with a male protagonist, they're just constantly being saved. Well, even, I don't know how many of you watched
So that's what I was thinking too. Sword Art Online.
Where you have this female hero character, and then by the end, she's just the female character that the hero has to come and save, and she's not able to really complete her own journey. She just regresses.
It is tragic when a character is written to start so self-sufficient, but then they have to keep breaking her, and then she does cool things again, and then break again.
So it's really nice to see this changing shift that's happening over in Japan with these new concepts. So here is a bunch of manga and anime that are all about villainesses. So we have Death is Only the Ending for the Villainess, Beware the Villainess. Yeah, unfortunately we don't have time to, yes.
No, I think the first one, that's one with Penelope, right?
Yes.
They recently changed its name. It's like Villains. Only
Villains
Destiny
are,
is
yeah, doesn't that.
Yeah.
I don't like that they keep doing that.
Yeah.
I know, it's my favorite book that they keep changing its name. But now it's on the official books, so.
Yay, but also boo.
Yeah, I love the Cinderella one. That one's good.
So we'll make this up as that again.
Yeah. And then reference slide. Good luck reading all of that.
So just things that we looked over while we were
There's
looking
this
at concept
manga,
there.
it's really short. It's called Even Monsters Like Fairy Tales. I really recommend it if you haven't read it. It's really good. It's like a sort of critique on the villainous isekai person trope.
Nice. Thank you all for coming at 9 o'clock in the morning. You're the real MVPs.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoy the rest of your con. We were talking earlier, we are also doing another panel at 2 o'clock in Live 3, titled Bugging Out Why Some Glitches Work. So we'll be talking about glitches in gaming, consequences of what happens when they occur, when can they be good versus when did they make a game unplayable and unenjoyable. So feel free to come by for that and enjoy the rest of your con.
I'm still surprised Accomplishments of the Good Daughter does not have its own anime. Of all the ones to get an anime, I swear that would have been one by now.
There's a lot that you're like, I don't understand what becomes an anime and what doesn't. Especially when you have ones that are really popular, everyone liked them, it's completed work, perfect for an anime, and they don't do it.
Kill the Villainess just ended, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like it comes down to do they think they can make money off of this. So.
But then they choose the series that's being canceled.
Yep.
Heretical. That one still bothers me. It's great. It's amazing. the artist got sick, the manga's no longer a thing. Why are we making this into an anime?
Oh, because they secretly hate all of us.
I know.
They're making an anime of this manga where it's not making it because the author died, but they're making it an anime.
Anime adaptation of how they think it should have gone.
Yeah, I guess.
Alright, thank you guys.
We gotta go check out.
Remember to check out your hotels by 12 or whatever.